The voice of the drum calls. It sings a song of those who came before us and those to come. A song of survival and strength. A song of participation and voice. A song that calls us together. When we come together and participate in the 2010 census, we use this tool as the voice of all our Native people. Our voice. It is in our hands. 2010 census.
Welcome to this edition of the Native News Update on this Tuesday, May 4th. I'm your host for today's program, Paul DeMain. Many of the stories read here can also be found at our website at IndianCountryNews.com. Here are the news stories for the day from the Associated Press and other Native news sources. 2 Yakama Nation fishermen who drowned in a fishing boat accident on the Columbia River near Wishram, Washington, have been identified. The Yakama Herald-Republic reports that death notices prepared by the Colonial Funeral Home of Toppenish identified them as Jessica Lewis, 29, of Wapato, and Wilson LaRock, 57, of Toppenish. Meanwhile, search boats from the Columbia River Intertribal Fish Commission and the Warm Springs and Umatilla tribes searched this weekend for a third fisherman presumed drowned. They returned back by bad weather. 4 Yakama tribal members were aboard an 18-foot boat on April 30th when the boat swamped in 30-mile-per-hour winds and high swells. A 4th man on board was able to make it to shore. Eastern Idaho officials are questioning the authority of the Shoshone Bannock Tribes to enforce a new ordinance on the Fort Hall Reservation concerning non-tribal members. Pocatello Mayor Brian Blood, Chugbuck Mayor Steve England, Bannock County Commissioner Steve Hadley, and Powder County Commissioner Vicki Meadows recently sent a letter concerning the ordinance that went into effect on April 27th. The ordinance states that the tribe's regulatory authority extends to both Indian and non-Indian owned lands on the Fort Hall Reservation. The ordinance was prompted by a religious sect that wanted to build a 3-story, 18,000 square foot structure on nearly 4 acres last year. But local officials say the tribe's assertion of jurisdiction goes way too far. Well, it's not the military invasion some on Facebook were organizing protest marches for at the United Nations at the beginning of this week, but residents of the Pine Ridge Reservation say 3 helicopters tried to land at the site of the Wounded Knee Village on May 1st, and they were offended by how it was done. They say they're upset because they consider it sacred ground. Charlie Newholy says one helicopter landed briefly just 50 feet from the cemetery that oversees what is left of the village below following its destruction when occupied by the American Indian Movement in 1973. The helicopters came from the Colorado National Guard and were on an educational tour with permission of the Pine Ridge tribal government when the incident occurred. Residents of Wounded Knee confronted the helicopters but weren't sure why they were there. Oglala Representative Teresa Tubal says there was some miscommunications going on regarding the event, and she has apologized for it. An estimated 300 American Indians were killed by the U.S. Cavalry in the 1890 Wounded Knee Massacre and are buried on top of a hill near a church. In addition to Buddy Lamont from the 1973 event, several other people were buried in the vicinity of the Wounded Knee Village during the occupation of AIM, including black civil rights activist Perry Ray Robinson, Jr. A statue of Sacajawea with her baby in a cradle board on her back has been dedicated with the burning of ceremonial sweetgrass at the Missouri River Federal Courthouse in Great Falls, Montana. More than 100 people took part April 30th in the ceremony for the 9.5-foot statue of the American Indian woman who guided explorers Lewis and Clark on their trip west. The statue, titled Artist's Journey, was created by Carol Grendy, who passed away in March of 2009. A fundraising campaign raised $80,000 to buy the statue, which had been previously located at the Great Falls International Airport. Some members of the White Earth Band of Ojibwe still intend to demonstrate their off-reservation fishing rights despite efforts by tribal leaders from the White Earth and Leech Lake to discourage a treaty rights demonstration. Organizers of the Great Anishinaabe Fish-Off call for tribal members to violate state law by fishing in several northern lakes prior to the state walleye fishing opener on May 15th in Minnesota. The idea of a mass exercise of civil disobedience was first floated months ago. That's when members of the White Earth and Leech Lake Chippewa bands began meeting jointly to discuss strategies for reasserting rights under the 1855 treaty. Bob Shimek attended some of those committee meetings. Shimek said the event will likely happen May 14th, probably on several lakes. He expects hundreds of band members will participate. Lake Bemidji is one possibility, and Detroit Lake south of White Earth is also being considered. The public demonstration will have a cultural element, including a traditional ceremony. Shimek said that it will be peaceful, and State Department of Natural Resources enforcement officers will know about it beforehand. Two-state legal battle over who owns a chunk of rock is ending with a win for Kentucky over Ohio. A federal judge has ordered a lawsuit stayed after the states reached a deal returning the 8-ton boulder to Kentucky from Ohio. For generations, Indian Head rock jutted out of the water on the Kentucky side of the Ohio River. It served as a navigation marker for boaters and a surface for carvings of initials, names, and a crude face. An expedition of Ohioans moved the rock to Portsmouth, Ohio 3 years ago. Kentucky has been fighting for its return ever since. And that is the latest roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. Thank you for stopping in. Come back again soon. Miigwech.